With that, we bring in Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State and CIA director, and now a Fox News contributor. Good to have you here, Mike Pompeo. Always a pleasure to have
Thanks,
you.
Martha.
So what goes through your mind when you listen to that Houthi leader basically telling us to bring it on, that they're not worried about any retaliation for what they're doing, and also this report that says that the Iranians are giving them the location of these vessels for drone strikes?
Well, Martha, when I hear him say that, it reminds me of my time in service at both as CIA director and Secretary of State. The Houthis were at this same kind of mission, but they never came after us dozens and dozens of times. Instead, what we did is we put pressure on the head of the snake. We put pressure on the regime in Iran. Nothing that the Houthis do happens without Iranian complicity. This spy vessel is not a surprise. The fact that the armaments, the capabilities they have are coming out of Yemen isn't because of an indigenous capability in Yemen. It's because of Iranian technology. This all goes back to Tehran. And to the extent that the Biden administration doesn't acknowledge that, provide a response to that, deter it, then the kinds of statements that you heard from this Houthi leader will continue. We can get complete military dominance there. During our time, we understood this risk. We took down transit of countless ships. We showed the weapons to the world that were coming out of Iran. But if you placate them, if you simply say, well, we're going to stop the drones from hitting our ships, but don't impose a cost on them, it is certainly the case that they will continue their aggressive actions, and at some point, they'll kill more Americans.
So it's pretty clear that Iran feels safe doing these things at this moment. They appear to be emboldened, and their proxies are emboldened. We're seeing also more movement in the northern part of Israel as Hezbollah is moving the line down where they operate. And there's a report in the Washington Post that says that essentially the White House is discouraging, asking Israel not to aggravate anything that would create a northern front in this war. In other words, back off against Hezbollah.
Martha, it's incomprehensible to me that this administration would ask that. You've had Israelis have to move out of their homes in the northern part of Israel because of the threat from the Iranian regime coming via Hezbollah in the north. The Israelis have every right, indeed they have a responsibility to protect their own citizens inside of their borders, and that may mean that they have to take even more action than they've already taken to date. But, it's the same thing that's happened in the Gaza Strip, Martha. The administration has said, hey, look, you got to get this wrapped up. You have to end this. When the Hamas leaders who conducted an atrocity on October 7th here, that the Americans are pressing Prime Minister Netanyahu to stop, that only empowers them and emboldens them, it strengthens them, it encourages them. And when you say, gosh, don't attack in the north, Hezbollah says green light in the same way that the Houthis feel like there is a green light. There's a central thesis here, Martha. The central thesis is the Iranian regime's ring of fire around Israel, and the United States ought to support Israel in every dimension to make sure that they protect themselves and protect the region as well.
I mean, the language is all about, sort of scaling it down and being careful and all of that, which, you can understand to a certain extent. But it seems to be sending a message that is inspiring more aggression on the parts of all of these places. One last thing for you, sir. When you look at this word that Hamas says, no, we're not going to do any more hostage release until the war's over, till there's a complete ceasefire, which raises a lot of questions when I hear that about these remaining hostages, 129 people, and what's going on with them at this point. This is a quote. It's just one quote from a 17-year-old hostage in the Jerusalem Post. And this is Agam Goldstein on if she believes that the others are still alive. And she said, the transitions between people there from place to place, because every transition I wondered if they were going to kill us. I don't believe there are still people there, she said. Your reaction to that?
Now, Martha, it is heartbreaking. It is evil what Hamas and Iran have done. I don't know. I don't have any inside information on the condition of these hostages, but every day that goes on, certainly the risk increases. It's why the effort to bring them home now is so important. But bringing them home isn't going to happen because the Israelis stop or slow down. Bringing them home is going to happen because Israel demonstrates that they're going to eradicate Hamas and they're going to go rescue these hostages. The reason the initial set of hostages got back wasn't because Israel went to the UN and begged for it. It was because they applied pressure and imposed costs. It's the same thing. The same thing that President Biden needs to do with Iran. The Israelis are going to have to do. If we don't go break something, if we don't go push back, this will only escalate. Weakness does not deter, Martha. We've seen this time and time again.
Well, that's why you titled your book "Never Give an Inch," and it's a different kind of philosophy than what we're seeing play out currently. Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, former CIA director. Very good to have you here. Very complicated times we're living in. I hope you and your family have a very Merry Christmas. I know you'll be keeping all of these people in mind, as we all will, over the holiday. Thank you, sir.
Amen. Many blessings to you and your family too, Martha. So long.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.